Welcome to AI Unraveled, your daily forensic briefing at the intersection of business and artificial intelligence. It is Thursday, April 9th, 2026. I'm your co-host, Anna. Before we begin our autopsy of the market, a quick reminder. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to AI Unraveled directly on Apple Podcasts so you can enjoy this strategic briefing and all our daily episodes completely ads-free. Today's episode is brought to you by DjamgaMind. When OpenAI has to abandon billion-dollar data centers due to power grid constraints, you need to understand the physical limits of the tech sector. DjamgaMind delivers the technical-grade, human-verified audio forensics the C-suite relies on to navigate global infrastructure shifts. Visit DjamgaMind.com. Today, we are unpacking the Capex reality check. For years, the AI race has been a software competition, but today, it becomes a heavy industrial utility war. We are going to deconstruct Amazon's massive $200 billion infrastructure bet and why AWS AI revenue is scaling 260 times faster than its original cloud business. We will also look at the geopolitical failure of OpenAI's UK data center and analyze exactly why Meta has suddenly killed its open source philosophy to launch a closed, proprietary model. Let's unravel the bottom line.
Usually when we talk about the tech industry, there's this expectation of magic. Like alchemy, right? Two founders in a garage write some brilliant code, hit compile, and suddenly they've disrupted a global industry using nothing but Wi-Fi and caffeine.
Right, yeah. The myth of the asset-light tech monopoly. We've been sort of coasting on that idea since, well, the early days of the App Store.
Exactly. It's light, it's invisible, it's just software. But then you look at the reality of the AI landscape today. We're at April 9th, 2026 right now. And suddenly that invisible software magic is hitting a massive wall.
A wall made of, like, physical copper and concrete?
Yeah, and hundreds of billions of dollars. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cross-referencing Andy Jassy's latest shareholder letter, leaked internal meta documents, and financial autopsies of OpenAI's infrastructure.
Don't forget Anthropic's new pricing charts, too.
Right, Anthropic, too. We're doing a technical and strategic autopsy of the AI landscape, looking strictly at the unit economics. P&L, M&A, and infrastructure scale. The mission today is what we're calling the Capex reality check.
Because, frankly, we're looking at a space that has suddenly become less about elegant math and more about heavy industrial manufacturing.
I mean, you can have the smartest model in the world, but if the capital expenditure, the Capex required to run it, bankrupts you, the math simply doesn't matter.
Exactly. The open source AI dreams are just colliding violently with the reality of global power grids.
So let's start with the most staggering number in the room. Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, just dropped his 2025 shareholder letter. And he is out there defending a jaw-dropping $200 billion capital expenditure plan for 2026.
$200 billion. That is just, it's hard to wrap your head around.
Right. For context, if you aren't staring at balance sheets all day, Capex is the money spent on physical things, server racks, LAN, cooling fans, copper wire. Jassy's essentially spending the GDP of a small country on heavy metal.
Yeah, and to justify deploying that level of physical capital, you have to look at the forensic numbers Jassy is waving around to, calm down his investors.
The AWS numbers, right?
Exactly. AWS's AI revenue has hit a $15 billion annual run rate. For anyone unfamiliar with the term, an annual run rate just takes the current monthly revenue and multiplies it by 12 to predict the year.
Which is wild. Hitting a $15 billion run rate just 3 years into the AI boom is historically unprecedented.
Yeah, it's like 260 times faster than the original AWS growth curve.
And on top of that, Amazon's internal custom chips business, their Trainium chips, is generating over $20 billion a year in value internally. But I need to pause right there. Because when companies are deploying $200 billion in capital expenditure, relying on Twitter hype is financial suicide. DjamgaMind provides the human-verified, technical-grade audio forensics required to allocate enterprise capital correctly. Visit DjamgaMind.com.
Right, and Jassy actually tries to soften this astronomical spend with a historical comparison in the letter.
Oh, the Edison thing.
Yeah, he talks about Thomas Edison opening the first commercial power station in 1882. Like, people thought electricity was just a slightly less smelly way to light a reading room.
They had no idea it would reorganize every factory and home on Earth.
Exactly. Jassy is signaling that AI is the new electricity, and Amazon is just building the power plants.
See, I have to push back hard on this. Selling internal tech usually means you've lost your competitive edge and you're desperate for cash.
Okay, how so?
Well, If Amazon's internal custom Trainium silicon is so incredibly successful, like generating $20 billion in value, giving it to competitors is insane. Yet there are reports they're preparing to sell these Trainium AI chip racks directly to outside third-party customers.
I see what you mean.
I just don't see this as a sign of ultimate market dominance. It reeks of desperation to offset that $200 billion Capex bill.
Well, consider the alternative, right? If you keep it entirely internal, you swallow 100% of the R&D and manufacturing costs. By externalizing the hardware, Amazon is attempting to subsidize their own bottleneck.
Like the AWS playbook applied to silicon.
Exactly. 20 years ago, Amazon needed massive servers for holiday shopping, and they just sat idle the rest of the year. So they rented out the excess capacity, creating AWS. Today, they need massive AI compute.
So by selling Trainium racks, they are turning their biggest expense into a revenue center. They are trying to get the rest of the market to pay for their $200 billion infrastructure bill.
Precisely. But getting the market to pay for it assumes the physical infrastructure can actually be built in the first place.
Right, which creates a direct causal link to the physical limitations of the world. You could have a $200 billion budget, you can have the silicon, but it is completely useless if you can't physically plug the servers into a wall.
Because the energy constraint is the ultimate physical bottleneck.
Look at OpenAI. They just completely paused their Stargate data center project in the UK.
Which is a huge deal.
Massive. This is supposed to be the crown jewel of the UK's AI growth zone plan. 5,000 jobs, £30 billion in private investment. And OpenAI just packed up and walked away.
Well, a modern data center doesn't just need a standard electrical hookup. A mega cluster requires gigawatts of power. We are talking about the equivalent output of a dedicated nuclear reactor.
Plus millions of gallons of water for the cooling systems.
Right. The UK grid literally cannot absorb that shock without triggering rolling blackouts for regular citizens. Combine that physical impossibility with localized regulatory tape, and the project just becomes a massive liability.
And the contrast here is what makes this a huge forensic indicator. The UK project is dead in the water, but OpenAI's $500 billion US effort is steaming ahead.
Yeah, they are already training AI systems at their massive Texas facility.
And they have active expansion projects underway in the UAE and Norway, funded by this gargantuan coalition of Oracle, MGX, and SoftBank.
So if you are an investor or an enterprise strategist listening to this, the implication is staggering. Sovereign nations, G7 countries like the UK, are literally dropping out of the global AI race.
Not because they lack brilliant software engineers.
No, because they cannot provide cheap enough electricity for these industrial mega clusters. AI dominance is no longer just about writing elegant math. It is about national power grids.
If a nation cannot provide the industrial energy capacity and clear regulatory pathways, they are functionally obsolete in the frontier AI race.
The moats have shifted entirely from algorithmic to thermodynamic.
Thermodynamic moats. I love that. And if compute and power cost billions of dollars and require literally nuclear reactors, the era of giving away your best models out of the goodness of your heart is over.
You just can't give away software that costs a country's GDP to run.
Which brings us to Meta and a massive contradiction. Mark Zuckerberg spent the last 2 years championing the open source era with the Llama models. But now Meta is re-entering the frontier race with Muse Spark.
The first model from their new Superintelligence Labs division. And Muse Spark represents a total strategic U-turn.
The capabilities are wild, though.
Oh, definitely. It handles voice, text, and image inputs natively. It features a fascinating contemplating mode that pits multiple internal agents against each other to debate hard problems before giving an answer.
Yeah, it's ranking in the top 5 on the intelligence index, going toe-to-toe with Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.4.
And it is exceptionally strong in health reasoning.
But Muse Spark is not open weight. For anyone keeping track, open weight essentially means anyone can download the core brain of the model, modify it, and run it on their own servers.
Which was the whole draw of Llama.
Exactly. But you can't do that with Muse Spark. It cannot be run locally. The API is entirely closed. What happened to open source Zuckerberg? Why this sudden proprietary pivot?
Well, look at the balance sheet. 9 months ago, Meta acquired Stale AI for $14.3 billion.
That's right, and Mark Zuckerberg put Alexandr Wang in charge of this new labs division.
And Wang explicitly stated they, quote, rebuilt our AI stack from scratch. When you execute a merger and acquisition at that scale, you pay an M&A premium. That $14 billion hole in the balance sheet has to be filled.
You don't rebuild your entire architecture from scratch. buy out a massive data company, and burn through gigawatts of energy just to put the product on GitHub for free.
You literally cannot afford to open source a model when you need to recoup a $14 billion premium plus those thermodynamic GPU costs.
And it goes beyond just the infrastructure Capex. Meta is facing brutal P&L headwinds from recent litigation.
Oh, the Los Angeles jury decision.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, a LA jury found Meta and YouTube negligent in a landmark social media addiction case involving a young woman's mental health.
And to mitigate further class action risks, Meta is actively having to remove plaintiff recruitment ads placed by trial lawyers from their own platforms.
They are bleeding revenue on multiple fronts. Every single dollar counts right now. They need direct monetization of their AI R&D. But enterprise buyers aren't just afraid of legal risks, they're drowning in integration costs.
Right, because if you buy a proprietary model, you still have to build the plumbing to make it useful.
Which brings me to this. Look, your inbox is full of top 50 AI tools lists that you never opened. Stop collecting shiny objects and start deploying real infrastructure. Etienne has audited the market for you. Head over to DjamgaMind.com toolkit for the AI Executive Toolkit. This is a private, forensic vetted stack featuring tools like Chatbase and 11 Labs enterprise-grade weapons designed to drive actual governed ROI.
And that vulnerability, the sheer cost of building the plumbing for these AI systems is exactly what Anthropic is attacking today. They just opened a public beta for something called Claude Managed Agents.
This feels like a quiet, highly aggressive monopoly play. Let's explain what this means for the non-engineers. Anthropic is stepping in and saying, we will handle the managed backend.
Because the biggest problem with AI agents right now is state management.
Right, dropping state basically means the AI gets amnesia. It forgets what it was doing halfway through a complex task.
And building the architecture to prevent that amnesia, keeping the agent secure, and managing its access to your corporate databases takes engineering teams months of expensive work.
So Anthropic is taking that entire burden off the enterprise's plate. They handle the running, the securing, and the orchestration of the agentic system.
These managed agents can work solo for hours without dropping state. They even have a coordination mode where a primary agent can farm out subtasks to specialized worker agents, consolidate the results, and deliver the final product.
Yeah, early adopters like Rakuten reportedly set up autonomous agents across 5 different departments in about a week.
But the pricing is what makes this a kill shot. Anthropic is charging 8 cents an hour per agent session.
On top of the usual AI usage fee, but still 8 cents.
Right. Anthropic's managed agent fee isn't just cheap, it's a toll booth on the internet. They aren't selling you the car. They are paving the road, managing the traffic lights, and charging you every single time an AI drives on it.
If you are an IT director listening to this right now, Anthropic's pricing model should absolutely terrify you because it means your current cloud middleware stack is about to become obsolete.
Traditional cloud middleware providers exist to connect different software applications together. If Anthropic handles the plumbing, the security, and the orchestration for pennies an hour, why do you need Oracle or IBM middleware?
Anthropic is shifting from being an AI lab that makes smart chatbots to positioning themselves as the new operating system for the enterprise.
And this transition from expensive upfront flat-rate subscriptions to pure consumption-based pricing is proving to be financially lethal to competitors. Take Perplexity, for example.
Oh yeah, they just hit an estimated $450 million in annual recurring revenue. That is a 50% monthly jump.
And they achieved that massive ARR spike by tying their revenue directly to consumption. They introduced new agentic computer tasks.
So instead of paying $20 a month for unlimited chat, you pay for exactly what the agent consumes while executing a complex research task.
Exactly. As users rely more on these autonomous actions, the compute usage scales and the revenue scales exponentially alongside it. The unit economics of consumption-based models are completely outperforming traditional SaaS subscriptions.
Okay, so the corporate financial success is undeniable, right? 450 million ARR for Perplexity, the 15 billion AWS run rate. The enterprise strategy makes sense on paper.
Oh, sure.
But there's a massive gaping hole in this entire economic model, and it's the end user reality. The human element is actively rebelling against the Capex mandate.
Well, the hyperscalers are deploying $200 billion based on the assumption of mass, frictionless adoption. If the users reject the tools, the entire consumption-based revenue model collapses.
And they are rejecting it hard. A new Gallup poll just dropped, and the statistics are brutal. Gen Z's hopefulness about AI has plummeted to 18%.
Wow.
Nearly a third say interacting with AI makes them feel actively angry. 35% are very concerned about its advancement.
And it's not just pessimistic students, right?
Not at all. 80% of white-collar workers are outright refusing corporate AI adoption mandates. 8 out of 10 workers are looking at these expensive new tools and saying no.
Which is terrifying for the balance sheet. If the exact demographic you need to consume these agentic tasks, knowledge workers, and the next generation of employees is actively rebelling, your path to recouping that $200 billion just evaporates.
So how do corporations respond to this rebellion? By forcing it in the most embarrassing way possible. Let's look at the leaked Meta internal leaderboard.
Oh, Claudionomics.
Yeah, someone inside Meta built an internet tracker called Claudionomics. It ranks 85,000 Meta employees on their AI token consumption.
For context, think of a token as roughly a syllable or a fraction of a word processed by the AI. Every token costs a fraction of a cent in compute power.
According to the leak, Meta employees burned through 60 trillion tokens in 30 days.
60 trillion. Unbelievable.
And why did they do it? So they could earn gamified corporate titles like Token Legend or Session Immortal.
This is the absolute definition of Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
This is exactly like measuring a software developer's worth by how many lines of code they write. It just incentivizes bloating the system with useless garbage.
And the math gets even darker when you connect this behavior back to the infrastructure constraints we talked about earlier. Volume without outcome tracking isn't just pointless, it is actively destructive to the ROI.
Because of the energy costs.
Right. Remember the gigawatts of power, the nuclear-level energy demands, the millions of gallons of cooling water. Meta is paying for all of that physical infrastructure just so an employee can burn 60 trillion tokens asking an AI to generate useless data.
Just to win a title called Token Legend.
It threatens the exact Capex deployments Andy Jassy and Mark Zuckerberg are defending. If this highly gamified, financially wasteful behavior is what good usage looks like internally at Meta, the broader enterprise adoption metrics we are seeing across the industry might be fundamentally hollow.
So, what does this all mean for you listening? Let's bring this back to the core mission of today's deep dive. We started by stripping away the invisible magic of software, and the reality check is unavoidable.
Software models, no matter how brilliant the mathematics, are completely useless without physical power grids, heavy industrial cooling systems, and massive real estate.
Those beautiful open-source ideals of the early AI boom. They vanish instantly when the capital expenditures hit hundreds of billions of dollars, and M&A premiums require closed APIs to monetize.
You simply cannot open source a nuclear-powered data center.
Exactly. The implications of that physical reality are profound.
If energy capacity and infrastructure capex are the ultimate moats, then the future of AI won't be dictated by the smartest researchers in Silicon Valley. It will be dictated by the utility companies and the hyperscalers controlling the physical power grid.
We are not just investing in revolutionary software. We are funding the next generation of digital utility monopolies.
Yeah, it's a completely different paradigm.
But here is something else to consider before we wrap up. If the primary bottleneck to AI dominance is physical energy, and sovereign nations like the UK are dropping out because they cannot power these grids.
Where are you going with this?
Well, how long before we see the first geopolitical conflict fought, not over oil or physical territory, but over access to nuclear power, specifically earmarked for AI data centers? When compute equals national security, the power plant becomes the most contested asset on Earth.
Wow, that is a chilling thought to leave on.
That is the multi-billion-dollar reality. Subscribe to AI Unraveled on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free.
That concludes our forensic business rundown for April 9th. The strategic signal for today is physical constraints. For the last 3 years, the AI narrative was entirely about software benchmarks. But today, the truth is laid bare. Intelligence requires electricity, and electricity is finite. OpenAI is being forced to abandon billion-dollar data centers because they literally cannot secure the power. Amazon is spending $200,000 just to keep the lights on and the chips running. And Meta has realized that when compute costs this much, you cannot give your frontier models away for free. The open source honeymoon is over. The era of industrial proprietary intelligence has begun. If you want to survive this shift, your inbox full of top 50 AI tools PDFs isn't going to save you. You need enterprise-grade solutions. Head over to DjamgaMind.com toolkit for our AI Executive Toolkit. We have audited the entire market to bring you a forensic vetted list of platforms that actually work, complete with exclusive listener perks so you can deploy real infrastructure today. This episode was made possible by DjamgaMind. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts to enjoy this briefing completely ads-free. I'm Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.
And before you go, if your company is building the tools that power the workflows we talked about today, I'd love to showcase them to this audience. We don't just run ads, we build technical simulations that prove your value. Let's build something together. Visit DjamgaMind.com/partners to get started. Until next time, keep building.